Okay guys, we have to talk. I've been getting a ton of comments on my Strand Titan build video from last season asking if Banner of War is the new go-to for that build, and 100% it absolutely is better than Fletchet Storm. It might honestly be the best aspect in the entire game. To be completely honest with you, I only used Fletchet because it was melee based and Drenger's Lash just had no synergy with the build. But at the end of the day, the build revolves around Frenzied Blade melees and grapple melees. And in that build video, I talked about the damage stacking that is provided by 1-2 Punch and Synthoceps to this build. And I am pleased to report that those melees deal even more damage with Banner of War. 40% more to be exact. Now, towards the end of the video, I will give the new and improved build recommendations, but not much has changed if you saw my last video. But first, I want to focus on Banner of War, the new Strand aspect that just came out this season. It states defeat a target with a melee attack, finisher, or sword to raise a Banner of War that pulses with energy, periodically healing nearby allies and increasing melee and sword damage. Targets defeated by you and nearby allies charge the banner, increasing the speed of its pulses. So in past videos, I like to show evidence of the damage buffs and whatnot so that you can see how they stack and get a feel for the strength of the build. But again, I did that in my last video, so if you want more detail, check that out. But what I want to do for this video is just show background footage of the build in action because it is absolutely absurd what this build can do. And I will just talk about all the aspects of this build and how everything works together. So when I talk about the buff stacking and whatnot, just trust that I have done the testing and looked at the numbers. So first, let's talk about Banner of War because it takes this build from amazing to completely overpowered. The fine folks who developed the Destiny Data Compendium already have the info you need on Banner of War, so let's look at what it does. Upon scoring a sword kill, melee kill of any type, it doesn't have to be a charged melee. Glaive melee kill, super kill, or finisher raises a Banner of War for 15 seconds, buffing you and nearby allies within 10 meters. Kills scored by you or nearby allies grant Empower and extend the duration of Banner of War up to a maximum of ×4 Banner of War for 30 seconds. So when it says buffs nearby allies, it also buffs those allies' melees, so things like Combination Blow, Liar's Handshake, Hunters will hit 40% more damage. I don't know if a lot of people realize that. So to understand how it works, you need a melee kill of some type to activate Banner of War, but after that, kills in any way will extend the timer. So you get another stack of Banner of War for every 2 enemies you kill, and this goes up to 4 stacks. Allies can also contribute to this as long as they are within 20 meters of you. The last stack requires 3 kills to get to ×4. Kills increase the duration of the timer by 5 seconds, but the duration gets extended by 1 second less for each stack of Banner of War. So if you go to 2 stacks, you get 4 seconds back, 3 stacks you get 3 seconds, and 4 stacks you only get 2 seconds. But with some of the ad dense activities we have this season, slaying out on enemies really isn't an issue. In addition to buffing all your melees, including the melee in your Strand Super, it also gives you health back every time it pulses. So it restores 20 HP with every pulse. At 1 stack, it pulses every 2.5 seconds, and each stack makes it pulse half a second quicker. So 1 stack, 2.5 seconds, 2 stacks, 2 seconds, 3 stacks, 1.5 seconds, and 4 stacks, it pulses every single second. So I mentioned it buffs your melees by 40%, but it also increases glaive damage by 25% and sword damage by 10%. What is really cool about this is that 10% sword damage stacks with weapon surges. So if you're running something like the Lament, it already hits really hard, and then you get 22% more from 3 solar surges and 10% more on top of that from Banner of War for a 34.2% damage increase to your sword when Banner of War is active. It is rare to have buffs that stack in Destiny, so I was surprised that you get an additional 10% more on top of the surges. So now that we know what Banner of War does, let's go through the new and improved build from the one I made a month ago. So the build centers around Synthoceps, which gives you 3 times melee damage and 1.5x super damage, but now both of these are being buffed by Banner of War, so essentially your melee is now always doing 4.2x damage, and your super melee attacks, not the heavy attack, is dealing 2.1 times more damage. That is absurd, because it is already one of the best total damage supers in the game with Synthoceps, and you can see in the background gameplay, nothing really stands a chance. We then pair this with a 1-2 punch shotgun to get an additional 40% melee damage, taking our Frenzied Blade melee to 5.88x damage. In a tier 3 Altars of Summoning, you can wreck the yellow bars in a hurry with just one 1-2 punch combo. It is absurd the amount of damage this can do. I took it into a Master Lost Sector at 23 levels under power, so almost GM power delta, and with a Tractor Cannon 1-2 punch melee combo, I was able to get an Overload Captain to finisher range in just one punch. When I say this build is overpowered, I mean it. As long as you are in content with enemies around so that you have synthoceps procced, you'll be absolutely wrecking everything. On the Lost Sector boss, I get screwed on the damage phase because of the totem the Scorn boss summons, and I hit that instead, but I easily could have melted him in like 3 punches. Which brings me to how to play this build and what its strengths and weaknesses are. Because it does have weaknesses, believe it or not. But as someone well versed in this playstyle, I can identify those and let you know so that you know what to watch out for. So the first big weakness is certain enemy types. Fucking Scorn lurkers and their stupid little shields will block your melee attacks. This can be problematic because you think you are about to get a melee kill, and that will spawn a tangle so you can get Woven Mail and get Banner of War going, but then boom, they block it and you're a shit out of luck and have no damage resistance, and then you get melted. So watch out for those little bastards. God, I hate Scorn sometimes. And speaking of Scorn, the next is Screebs. But with any melee-based build, there are certain enemies that you must be careful around. Fallen have Exploder Shanks, Vex have Fanatics, Hive have Cursed Thrall, so watch out for anything that can explode when you kill them. And another one with the Scorn is, like I just mentioned, those totems that the chieftains spawn in. Those are ridiculously annoying. Sometimes you will punch them instead of the target you want, but the void ones make enemies immune, and I know barrier servitors do this too, but yeah, those immunity totems need to be dealt with immediately. This is an in-your-face type of build, so you'll be screwed really fast if the enemies are immune. This build is full throttle, it's all about offense. You can't die if the enemies are dead, right? That is the mantra of this build, is kill them before they kill you. Another downside to this build is Shriekers. On the day of writing this script, I ran a tier 3 altars with 2 LFG guys. Before we even started, I typed in game chat, kill the Shriekers, I can handle the rest. Because that is the one downside with this build. Floating enemies aren't really a problem, your melee and grapple melees can hit them just fine. Lament can be a little funky sometimes with these big bosses, but we'll get to that later. But Shriekers in tier 3 altars of summoning will mess you up if you aren't ready. Luckily, you can deal with them fairly easily if you set your loadout up correctly. So either have someone on the team dedicated to Shriekers, or if you are solo queuing, pack a Sniper or a Xenophage. It deals with them very easily. So now that we have identified the weaknesses, let's look at the strengths, which is basically everything that I didn't just say is a weakness. This build not only has insane ad clear because you can spam abilities, but it also has the highest consistent single target burst damage in the game. It's insane. In my previous video on this build, I said one weakness was you didn't have health regen, so I ran recuperation on my boots for health back on orb pickup. Well, now Banner of War handles that for us. So we can spec into even more offense, which means surges on the boots. So aside from those niche scenarios I spoke about with exploder units and Shriekers and stupid ass Scorn lurkers with their shields, this build can absolutely wreck all levels of content, including GMs. The trick is to play with this build and get used to the gameplay loop. I love being aggressive, so I'm used to it, but if you're a more passive player, this build will not be kind to you unless you go all in. You have to be committed to going full steam ahead. So with that all out of the way, let's show you the build setup so that you can get out there and destroy any content with ease. I'm going to go unscripted here and just discuss the build and the ins and outs of it. Alright, so here's the build we're rocking. Obviously we have Blade Fury. I run Rally Barricade because it has a much shorter cooldown than Towering Barricade because the cooldown just got nerfed this season. Strafe Lift, Frenzied Blade, it's your only option. Grapple for the grapple melees, obviously, they deal a ton of damage. Into the Fray, so destroying a Tangle or casting your super grants Woven Mail for nearby allies. While you have Woven Mail, your melee regeneration is increased. This is really important because the whole build revolves around our Frenzied Blade melees, and then also Woven Mail for that huge damage reduction to keep us alive. Then we have Banner of War, which I already gushed about for like 5 minutes, so we know everything that's going on with that. But basically it's increasing our melee damage and healing us. We have Threat of Warding. Picking up an Orb of Power grants Woven Mail. This is really important because we're always in the fray here, so we need Woven Mail up pretty much at all times so we don't die. Threat of Transmutation. While you have Woven Mail, Weapon Final Blows create a Tangle. This one is just whatever one. This can be subbed in and out if you want, but we do want Tangle generation as much as possible because this, Threat of Fury, damaging targets with a Tangle grants melee energy. Basically, anytime you come across a Tangle, pick it up and throw it at the nearest group of adds, and that will keep your melees up pretty much at all times. there's very few times in the background footage where I don't have a charged melee up. And then Thread of Generation, dealing damage generates grenade energy. So we're dealing a ton of damage, obviously, and then we want a grapple melee as much as possible. I run 100 Discipline just so that I have that up all the time, and then 100 Resilience as well, and only 30 Strength because honestly, between Into the Fray and Thread of Fury, you're always getting your melee. So, like I mentioned, if there's Shriekers, either a Sniper in one of these two slots, or you can run Xenophage, or what I've been liking to run this season, especially in the Savathûn Spire, because things aren't as threatening there, is Lament, because of that 10% we get from Banner of War, plus 3 Solar Surges. I run Solar Surges because I'm running Lament or Xeno. The Arc Surges was for Bequest. And then obviously 1-2 punch shotguns. So to be completely honest, this is obviously very aggro. Everything is like right here, but Swords got a buff this season to give more damage resistance when blocking, and that can get you out of some jams at times, and Lament also heals you when you deal damage. So I really like running Lament, but if those Shriekers are in the sky, definitely go with Xenophage, unless you have reliable teammates that can take them out. And then yeah, you just want 1-2 punch shotguns. For here, I have the Arc Strand combo because that's just what I've been running, but you want hands-on and heavy ammo finder. Synthoceps, obviously. Double impact induction to help get your grenade back quicker. Again, we're always doing melees, so this will get your grenade energy back quickly, and then you have to have heavy-handed so that you can create an orb of power every time you get a melee kill, and then those orbs of power give us Woven Mail from Thread of Warding. This, it's dependent on what activity you're in, so Solar, Arc, whatever you want to run, Void, Concussive Dampener, but yeah, resist mods here. Again, I'm going with 3, usually Solar Surges, just for more damage output. Honestly, like, you can melt the bosses in these activities so fast with this setup. And then Bomber on the class item, so if I am out of a grapple melee but I'm close, I can just pop my barricade. And then 2 time dilations just to increase the length of the weapon surge. So that's the build. And like I said, I honestly think it's the strongest build in Destiny right now. It looks like I almost forgot to mention artifact mods. So this one is good because again, we want to be making as many tangles as possible. This one is really nice because if someone steals our tangle, then it will reduce our tangle cooldown so that we can get one back quicker. Even though people don't generally steal them because they spawn right on top of where you kill someone with a melee. Picking up a Tangle or Elemental Orb grants energy to your least powered ability. Again, this is all about ability spam, so this just helps our cooldowns that much more. This one would be nice. I'm not sure how good the drop rate is, but it's always nice to have more heavy ammo. Again, especially if you're using Xenophage for those Shriekers. And then this one could be decent just because, again, you're always throwing Tangles. I don't know how much it actually buffs the damage, but any damage buff will be nice because, again, we're throwing these like every 15 seconds. So that's the build. Again, I've played with a lot of different builds, and last season I declared that Solar Bonk Titan was the strongest build in Destiny, and it was pretty much the meta for Solo Flawless Ghost to the Deep. It takes a lot for me to take that build off, but this build is 100% worth switching for. It is so strong and does so many things very well. Solar Titan has constant restoration and cure on the bonk hit, but this one has way more DR with Woven Mail and now has restoration in the form of Banner of War. It is an aggressive player's dream. Anyways, that's going to do it for the video. I hope to bring you a ton more awesome and fun builds in the near future. I have some other really strong builds cooking up, so subscribe if you don't want to miss those. I just wanted to start with this build because it is so good I am turning into a Titan main and I don't want to play anything else. Anyways, if you made it this far, then thanks so much for watching to the end, I really appreciate it. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and have fun punching the shit out of everything in sight. Take care.